So Bellator is back on Friday night with a 16-fight card from the Wintrust Arena in Chicago, Illinois. In the main event, it is the rematch for the light heavyweight championship, Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson. Finally, the conclusion to the light heavyweight World Grand Prix. And then in the co-main event for the lightweight championship, Pacheco Pitbull in his first defense will defend the championship against the undefeated Usman Nurmagomedov. 16 fights from Chicago, Illinois this Friday night. And folks, before we get into the predictions, if you haven't yet, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more Bellator here on the channel. Yesterday, we posted our Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak full card predictions video as well, so that's in the description down below. Now let's do it, man. Bellator 288 from Chicago. So if you watch Bellator, you know, I mean, a lot of their undercards are just showcasing for future prospects that they want to push in the top 10 eventually, and there's a lot of that here tonight. I mean, they put 16 fights in this card for a reason. There are a lot of fights where it's, all right, this guy's supposed to win. He's supposed to get a first round finish, and he's supposed to go out there and make a name for himself. There's a lot of that in this card. We will get through these really 8 fights where that's the case real quick. So the first one, we've got Vladimir Gueva taking on Corey. I mean, Vladimir's going to win this fight in the first round by KO. He's fighting guys 2 and 4. He's making his pro debut. He fights at AK in San Jose. You know, they want him to win this fight. He's going to win by first round knockout. This one, the next one does get a little bit interesting. It's Isaiah Hokit versus Nader. Now for Hokit, of course, he has fought before in Bellator. He's 1-1. He lost his first fight in 10 seconds in a fight that he was a -800 favorite in. Of course, coming out of Fresno State, he's a Central Valley gangster, but he wrestled at Fresno State. Now he's going to be taking on Mateus Nader, and I'm going to be taking Nader in this one. This is one of the fights where it is, I would say, closer than a lot of the other ones in this undercard. I'm going to take Nader to win this one by first round knockout, though. Hokit has it, or first round submission, excuse me. Hokit has displayed, all right, he does have wrestling, but I don't know if he can really keep up grappling-wise with Nader, so that's why I'm going to take Mateus Nader to win this one by first-round sub. Next up, we've got Anderson versus Rob Fenkel. Going to be taking Anderson in this one. He is 2-0 coming in this fight, taking on his 2-2 opponent. Anderson, so far, has won 2 fights in Bellator. He is a really good jiu-jitsu player, got a really extensive background with jiu-jitsu, and he's going to be fighting Rob Fenkel here, who, you know, he had a fight in Bellator when he won in 2019. Since then, he's dropped back-to-back fights in State Line, Rumble, and LFA in 2022. He's already 0-2 this year. He has not won a fight since that Bellator performance at Bellator 221. I think you're going to see some really good jiu-jitsu in this fight because for Rob, again, his 2 wins are by heel hook, but he did get finished by Mateus Nader, who is going to be fighting Isaiah Hokit. Earlier on in this card, Nader finished him by triangle choke in the first round when they fought in State Line Rumble earlier this year. I think if Nader can submit him, Anderson can too. So I'm going to take Laird Anderson to win this one by first round sub. And then our final fight here at the first 4, it will be Jordan Newman versus Jaden. You know, Jordan Newman's going to run right through him. I mean, Newman's 4-0 so far in Bellator. He has been dominant in all of his fights. He's got 2 decisions to his name and 2 TKOs. I think he'll get the TKO here. When you look at his opponent, he's 2-2. Jaden Talker, the tank. He's got a boxing background. His last MMA win comes earlier this year, but he just, you know, again, he's not going to be able to keep up wrestling-wise with Jordan Newman, and I really think Newman's going to make this fight quick. I think you're going to see a takedown early, and I think you're just going to see ground and pound until Jaden Talker can't take no more. So, going to be taking Jordan Newman to win this one by first-round TKO to stay undefeated so far in his professional MMA career. So, again, you might see a lot of big names here, or big prospects that Bellator has been pushing for a while on these 4 fights, but really, I feel like all these outcomes are pretty obvious, and if anything else happens, then it's just a major upset that no one really is going to see coming because no one's going to be picking against these guys. And first one being Sullivan Cauley taking on Jay Raddick. Sullivan Cauley's not losing this fight. Of course, he's coming off back-to-back wins, or back-to-back huge wins really, over Big Tuna, Ben Parrish, and then Tyson Jeffries in his last one. And before that, he beat Dion Clash. And really, you know, Cauley's had 4 fights in Bellator. They've all been first-round knockouts. This guy has been on a roll. Who's to say that Jay Raddick's going to, you know, stop the push here of Cauley? I mean, Jay's 38 years old. He's had 3 fights in cage sport against guys who have not had a winning record. It's another fight to push Cauley. Cauley's going to go in there. He's going to get another highlight reel knockout, and he's going to knock him out in the first round. Next up, Lucas Brennan should continue his undefeated run. Of course, you know Brennan's jiu-jitsu is tremendous. He's got a really good wrestling game, really good grappling game. Should see more of the same in this fight. Again, he's undefeated so far in Bellator. He is taking on a pretty game opponent, I would say, in this fight, in Nick. But still, I mean, this is a guy who's fighting guys who are 1-0 in LFA. Lucas Brennan's going to go in there. He's going to take him down. He's going to have his way on the ground in this fight. I'm going first round submission. It kind of feels like a step down a little bit for Lucas Brennan. I mean, Johnny Soto's not the greatest, but it kind of does feel like a little bit of a step down because Soto has seen a little bit of success in Bellator, beat Weber Almeida, and now you're booking Brennan against a guy who has not fought in Bellator just yet. So Lucas Brennan, first round submission. Next up, Archie Colgan versus Jesse Hannum. I mean, this is all Archie Colgan in this fight. I mean, Archie's been fighting really well so far in Bellator, and really just in his career so far. He starts off in LFA, he goes 2-0 over there, goes to Bellator, wins on Eagle FC. Now he gets another shot in Bellator, knocks out Brian Neuro. He's back. He's gonna just destroy his opponent here. He's taking on a 2-1 guy who is 26 years old, but I mean, he has a win in Caged Aggression, and then he lost in True Revelation 42 in 2021 against Johnny Hopper. I mean, come on. You know what's happening in this fight. You got a really high-touted prospect taking on a guy who's 2-1, who's making his Bellator debut. You know how it's going to go. Colgan first round knockout all day. And the next up, we got Aliyev taking on Sean Connor Fallon. Aliyev by decision here. You know, he's 8-0 coming into this fight, taking on a 16-7 guy. He's been fighting in Eagle FC, just had an Eagle FC victory 3 months ago. He's fought in UAE Warriors. It should just be all Aliyev in this fight. It should just be wherever he wants it. You're probably going to see an early takedown out of him, and I think he's just going to dominate Sean Connor Fallon on the ground. Fallon's not horrible on the ground. He does have some submission wins in the past. He has been submitted in his own right, but recently Fallon in Coliseum Combat and in B2 Fighting Series, he's pulled off 3 straight submission wins in his own right. That's why I don't think Aliyev's going to be able to get a finish, but I think he'll just be dominant. I think Aliyev's just going to take him down and hold him down, so I'm going to go with the unanimous decision victory for Aliyev, and that will round out the first 8 fights in this card. This is a fight, though. Jalen Bates, Jornel Lugo is a very good fight for Bellator here at 135 pounds because, again, we talked about it with the first 8 fights. Jalen Bates has basically been on the track that, you know, we're talking about with Brennan and we're talking about all these guys. That's the path Jalen Bates has been on. And now he's, you know, finally going and he's taking on a top 10 guy and he's fighting Jornel Lugo. Jornel Lugo is a fighter who Bellator just had in the Grand Prix, given it was a wild card bout against the guy who is fighting for the interim championship next in the Italian gangster Danny Sabatello. And yes, did Sabatello dominate Jornel Lugo in their fight? He did. But Danny Sabatello, I think, is going to have a very good chance to beat Raufeon Stotts in December, and we'll get to that fight when that fight does show up. But still, Lugo took on a real opponent in his last fight, a guy who will give really this entire bantamweight division a lot of problems. But it's just a big fight, I feel like, because Bates is getting that step up, and he's taking on Lugo, again, a guy who's just in the Grand Prix, who's got wins over Caspel, Keith Lee, Brian Moore in Bellator. And for Jalen Bates, again, he was just running through guys, submission wins left and right to start off his Bellator career, but his last fight gets in a very close fight with Mark Coates. He beats him by split decision, but it's a fight where the man's a minus 900 favorite and a little bit too close to comfort for Bates in that fight. I think this one against Lugo is a little bit too soon. I think it is. I think Lugo is just a little bit better than Jalen Bates is. Again, it's a huge step up for Jalen Bates, right? Mark Coates is a guy who's 10-7, who was, you know, lost 3 out of his last 4 going into the Jalen Bates fight. And now you go from that to a real top 10 guy that Bellator's got in the weight class in Jornel Lugo. I think Lugo's going to be able to limit the damage Jalen Bates can bring on the ground. I think he's going to be able to find himself out of some submissions that Bates might throw up. And I think Jornel Lugo is going to win this one by unanimous decision. I think he'll outbox Bates, and I think he'll find himself out of positions on the ground. And that's why I think Jornel Lugo is going to give Jalen Bates his first ever L. Going to be taking the minus 205 favorite in this one, Jornel Lugo, by unanimous decision, but I'm really excited for this fight. We've got a clash between 2 Brazilian lightweights here with Khizriev Mota taking on Jairo Pacheco. Taking Pacheco in this fight. I mean, he's 7-0, coming off a huge win on that LFA card. The LFA Brazil card is the Rio de Janeiro versus Sao Paulo card. And Pacheco goes in there, gets the second round knockout finish. And this guy is really quick on the feet. He's got heavy hands. He can mix it up on the ground as well. And Pacheco has looked good so far early to start off his career. But let's be honest, it is a huge step up going from LFA taking on a guy who's 8-5 and you're a minus 700 favorite in, to Khizriev Mota, a guy who, given, has lost 2 of his last 3, but is coming off a unanimous decision victory over Dan Moret. He lost to Mike Hamill before that, and Derek Anderson. He beat Mandel Nalo and lost to Austin Hubbard before those fights as well. I think Pacheco's going to get him, though, here. I really think Jairo Pacheco is going to land on Khizriev Mota, and I think he's going to knock him out in the second round. Just like how Pacheco won his last fight, I think he will get to Mota. I think Mota's slower than Pacheco. I think Pacheco's got heavier hands, and I think he's just got Mota beat on the feet. So I'm going to take Jairo Pacheco to win his first fight here in in Bellator, he's going to beat Mota, and he's going to get it done by second round TKO. Now we've got a fight between two fighters making their Bellator debut. We've got Rodrigues and Askhabov. And for Askhabov, 23-2 professional record, coming off a win in his last fight in 2020. It was a rear naked choke finish, an icon where he beat Cliff Wright by second round sub. The man was on a roll in WWFC until he ran into Elismar Lima, losing that fight in 2019 by unanimous decision. But again, a 23-2 professional record for Askhabov. I believe he used to train at Tiger Muay Thai, now out of ATT, if I'm not mistaken. He's pretty solid on the feet. He's got a pretty good Muay Thai game, and on the ground, he does have a pretty good jiu-jitsu game as well. He's going to be taking on Rodrigues. This is going to be a really interesting fight, though, because Rodrigues is coming off a big win in LFA in his last one. I could see this one really going either way, just because a lot of question marks surrounding both these guys, we're being honest. But Rodrigues picking up a huge win over Carlos Augusto da Silva in his last one by unanimous decision. He was a plus 200 dog in that fight at LFA 112. He ended up winning it. He's got a lot of impressive finishes and wins in Jungle Fight, as well as he was the former Jungle Fight featherweight champion. I can really see this one going either way. I'm going to take Askhabov to win this one, though, by unanimous decision. I think he's just a little bit all around better than Rodrigues. I think his striking is a little bit better, and then on the ground, I think Askhabov is to the point where he can, defend the submissions that Rodrigues will throw up. But I really think this is a really intriguing fight that could go either way. It's one that should be split down the middle, really. I'm going to take Askhabov, though, barely by decision, but again, should be a close one. I kind of do like Chokheli as a fighter, but I mean, this is not going to go well for him. I mean, Roman Faraldo, this guy's for real. This guy is for real. 8-0 so far in Bellator, or no, 6-0 in Bellator, 8-0 professionally. All first round knockout finishes for Faraldo so far. He's got one in the second round, was the Pat Casey win. But I mean, this guy, he is dominating guys. He is beating them left and right. He is knocking dudes out cold. And yes, this is the step up. Chokheli is the step up, because Chokheli's a guy, his last fight just lost to Gochi Yamuchi, got subbed by armbar in the first round. It is a step up for Faraldo, don't get me wrong, but this is the step up he needs, because I don't think Chokheli's not a bad striker. He can compete on the feet, but he cannot match the power Faraldo can, and I just don't think he's going to be able to keep up on the feet with a vicious, and his nickname's vicious for a reason, but really Faraldo is a dominant striker who has heavy hands. This should be a back and forth war, though, on the feet, because I don't think Chokheli's going to back down. I think he's going to stay in there, and I think he's going to swing back, and I hope he does, because that'll make for some damn fireworks in there. But I really do like Roman Faraldo here. He's a minus 185 favorite. I don't know what you could get, what odds you can get for, Faraldo by knockout, but I think that's definitely where we're going. I'm taking Roman by first round knockout here. I mean, I picked him by first round knockout in his last 3 fights. We're going to keep it going. I mean, again, this is the step up he needs to really push his way into the top 10 at welterweight in Bellator. This is going to be a huge fight for him, like really the Bates and Lugo fight is earlier on the card as well. But Roman Faraldo, first round knockout finish, should be something brutal. I think he's going to catch Chokheli and he's going to win. Again, taking Roman by first round knockout. So first Bellator start for the 40-year-old Daniel James. James has been fighting in ACA. Actually, no, he did have one Bellator fight a long time ago, I believe. Right, yeah, okay, in 2014, he made his pro debut in Bellator at Bellator 112 over Eric Correa, winning on main event Pat Curran and Daniel Strauss over there in Hammond, Indiana. But anyways, yeah, it's Daniel James' first fight in Bellator since his first pro fight 9 years ago, and now he's taking on Tyrell Fortune. But for Daniel James, 3 straight wins in ACA. The most notable one, I think, to just MMA fans in general, is the Rafael Pessoa win. He beat Pessoa in the second round by TKO. Yes, the same Pessoa that was in the UFC. The thing is, Rafael Pessoa went 1-2 in the UFC, losing to Cyril Gane and Tanner Boser. He beat Jeff Hughes. Who cares? And then he lost 3 straight fights in ACA afterwards. The middle one being to Daniel James. Thing with James, who's the American Predator, he's 40 years old. He's pretty old. But his last fight, he weighed in at 270 pounds, apparently. I don't know if this is Tapology just being weird, but apparently he weighed in at 270 in his last fight, or one point in time he weighed in at 270. Because Daniel James is a huge guy. He's 6'6", and he's got an 82-inch reach. Tyrell Fortune's a big guy too, but he's not that. Fortune's 6'2", 77-inch reach. He'll weigh in at about 260. Am I concerned that Fortune's going to lose? No, he's not. He's not going to lose. He'll be able to take down Daniel James, and he'll probably be able to finish him in the first round with strikes. But I'm just saying, this is an interesting fight because James is so huge, and he's been in there with some decent guys in the past. But I mean, when you look at Tyrell Fortune's been in there with some really solid guys too. Rakeem Cleveland is probably an exception, even though I don't think Cleveland's horrible. It's just that, he's fought better guys. He beat Matt Mitrione. He beat Said Soma back in 2020 as well. He fought Tim Johnson in 2020. Fortune is one of the more active guys Bellator does have at heavyweight. He's booked a lot, and he's really on these main cards often, and they're just trying to get him fights. Daniel James, again, coming in from ACA. He's won his last 3 fights, which is great, but I just don't think he's going to be able to fight off his back against Tyrell Fortune here. I think Fortune's going to back him up against the fence. I think he's going to take him down, and it's going to be just, ground and pound all day until Tyrell Fortune gets his hand raised. So we're going to be taking Tyrell Fortune to win this fight here. He is going to beat Daniel James, the American Predator, by first round TKO, taking the minus 300 favorite here in Tyrell Fortune to continue his winning ways. Bellator debut of Timur Khizriev. He'll be taking on Daniel Weichel here. Of course, Weichel has had a million fights. He's still doing the damn thing. He's only 37 years old, and he's coming off a win over Robert Whiteford in his last one, knocking Whiteford out in the first round. Big win for Weichel, getting back on the winning ways after losing to Pedro Carvalho, and he's, trading wins and losses. He beat Sal Rogers, lost to Emmanuel Sanchez, beat Keone Diggs, lost to Carvalho, and most recently, beating Robert Whiteford with the huge first round knockout victory. Now he's going to be taking Timur Khizriev on here, and Khizriev's solid. I mean, he's 11-0, has not lost just yet. This guy is dominant on the ground. He's got a pretty solid stand-up game as well. Fighting out of Dagestan. I believe so. If I'm not mistaken, which I rarely am, Khizriev's not fighting out of Habib's camp in Dagestan. It's the other Dagestani camp. But still, I think Khizriev's going to have his way in this fight. Weichel is getting up there. And when Weichel does take on some of these guys who, just simply put are better than him, he loses. He'll lose a decision most likely, and that's what I think is going to happen in this fight. I mean, we've seen it before with Weichel. I mean, again, the guy lost to Pedro Carvalho. He's lost to an older Emmanuel Sanchez, even though Sanchez at that point wasn't as washed up as he is now. But yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Sanchez lost to Yancy Medeiros in his last fight. But I think Khizriev should have his way here. I'm going to take him by decision. I think, again, Weichel is getting up there in age. I feel like I pick against him a lot. And this fight's really set up for the 26-year-old in Timur Khizriev to go in there and win. Going to take him by decision. Time for the co-main event and the lightweight championship. Pacheco Pitbull versus the challenger, the undefeated challenger, coming into this fight as a minus 400 favorite, the 24-year-old Usman Nurmagomedov. I don't think anyone expects Pacheco Pitbull to win this fight. I really don't think anyone expects this. Considering Pacheco Pitbull, he had the 1-1 thing with Peter Queally. He beats Queally in the second fight for the championship. Even though now Queally is coming off a loss of Benson Henderson, and it felt like Pitbull's, him getting the championship was weird because his brother, of course, vacated the championship to go fight at 45s. Pacheco gets it because he beats Queally. He's supposed to fight Sidney Outlaw for the belt. I thought Outlaw was going to beat him. Doesn't happen. So instead, Outlaw fights the guy who beat Pacheco Pitbull and Ryzen in Tufik Musayev. Musayev knocks out Sidney Outlaw in the first round. And now here we are. Musayev doesn't get the shot against Pacheco Pitbull. Instead, it's Usman Nurmagomedov, which is interesting because I think a fight between Musayev and Usman Nurmagomedov, let's be honest, is going to be next after Usman Nurmagomedov goes in there and submits Pacheco Pitbull in the second round. But, I mean, when we look at this fight, I just don't see, other than if Pacheco lands a complete bomb early in the fight, or, unless he lands a bomb, he's not going to win. Other than that, Usman Nurmagomedov is going to ground him, and he is going to submit him, or he's going to choke him out. I think Pacheco gets out the first, and that's all I'm going to give him. I think he'll get out the first round. I think he'll lose the first round. I think it's going to be Pacheco swinging wild early in the first round. Usman takes him down. Nurmagomedov holds him down the first round, tries to get a submission, gets close a couple times, doesn't actually get it. And in the second round, takedown. Pacheco tries to get up to his feet. He gives up his back. Usman gets him. Rear naked choke, fight over. I think that's how this fight plays out. I really think it does. I mean, Nurmagomedov has been dominant. He has not lost yet. 15-0. Again, the guys he's fighting, sure, are they not on the level of Pacheco Pitbull? They're not. But Pacheco Pitbull is truly, I don't think he's the best fighter at 155 right now in Bellator. I think, again, even though Sidney Outlaw just got knocked out by Tufik Musayev, I think Outlaw could beat him. I think Tufik Musayev would 100% beat him again. I think Usman Nurmagomedov beats him. I don't think Pacheco's the top guy at 155. I just don't think he is. Again, he's 1-1 with Queally, right? And Queally's not the greatest. I think Benson Henderson beats Pacheco Pitbull. I think Islam Mamedov beats him, who's no longer in Bellator. There's just a bunch of guys who can beat Pitbull, and Usman Nurmagomedov is one of them. He's going to go in there and submit him in the second round. The fight, though, you want to see next is a 100% Tufik Musayev, Usman Nurmagomedov. That will be a banger of a fight. Schedule it next. But for now, Usman Nurmagomedov finally captures Bellator gold. He will win the Bellator Lightweight Championship with a second-round submission win over Pacheco Pitbull. So it is the rematch, Vadim Nemkov, Corey Anderson. They will do it again. And can Corey Anderson finally seal the deal this time and win the championship? Now, their first fight. I mean, it's so interesting. It's the accidental clash of heads at the end of the third round, 4 minutes and 57 seconds into the third round. If that happened 3 seconds later, Corey Anderson would have won the championship because, of course, it was an accidental clash of heads. So they would have gone a technical decision. They would have gone to the scorecards. Corey Anderson was, of course, up on all 3 scorecards. He would have won the fight. It didn't go that way. Of course, Anderson thought he won. He jumped on the cage. They brought in the check, and they had to, of course, walk the check right back down the stairs because Frank Trigg called it a no contest, which I think technically is the right call because, of course, it was accidental. But, man, it sucks for Corey Anderson because he was on his way to win that fight against Vadim Nemkov. I mean, he was taking him down. He was working his ground and pound. He was doing what Corey Anderson does. He was striking effectively, too. He was beating Nemkov up there. He was winning the fight. And all that gets taken away. Nemkov's still a champion. He doesn't get the $1 million. And now he's got to fight him 7 months later. So Vadim Nemkov has had 7 months to make the adjustments. Can he capitalize this time? Because Corey Anderson, of course, he looked great in that first fight. And that has shifted him. Going into that fight the first time around, he was a plus 140 underdog. He is now a minus 240 favorite in the second fight against Nemkov. I think he's going to win. Don't get me wrong. I think Corey Anderson's going to win. I think the wrestling is going to be huge, and I think Anderson is going to put it on Nemkov early on the feet, and then I think he's going to go to his wrestling, and I think he's going to tire out Vadim Nemkov with the wrestling game. I think Corey Anderson is going to win this fight, and I think he's going to win the Grand Prix here. I think he's going to become the light heavyweight champion too. Again, what we saw at the first fight, Anderson looked really good, and I don't think, especially in 7 months' time, this isn't like we're getting this fight a year later. It is a little bit longer than you would like the rematch to be, but still, I just don't know what adjustments Nemkov could have made to really change the outcome of this fight, unless it's Nemkov landing a bomb, which of course can always happen out of Vadim Nemkov. You saw when he went there, he beat Ryan Bader, he caught him with a head kick, but like, that's really not what Nemkov's, I don't think he's going to do against Corey Anderson. Unless Anderson gets caught like he did against Jan Blachowicz, I don't think he loses. I think Anderson is going to blitz him early in that first round. I think Anderson is going to win points in that first round. I think he's maybe even knocking down Nemkov in that first round. And I think he's just going to make it hell for Vadim Nemkov after that. I think it's going to be constant pressure with the wrestling, and I think Corey Anderson's not going to let him get back up. I think it's going to be ground and pound, and more ground and pound. And I just think it's going to be a 5-round beatdown. I don't think Anderson's going to get a finish. If he does, I think it'll be late in the fight, like the 4th to 5th rounds. But I think Corey Anderson is just going to be an all-around dominant performance to win the Grand Prix, win that $1 million check, and win the light heavyweight championship, something he should have done in March or in April when the original fight happened. Anderson's going to do it. I really think he's going to. He's going to win this Grand Prix that featured a lot of big names. One being Anthony Rumble Johnson, rest in peace to Rumble, who just unfortunately passed away yesterday. But yeah, Corey Anderson's going to go win this championship. He is going to be the Bellator light heavyweight champ after beating Vadim Nemkov in the rematch. I think the wrestling's going to be huge. I think the forward pressure out of Anderson early in the fight will be huge as well. And I just don't see the adjustments. I don't think Nemkov can make all those adjustments coming from that first fight in just a 7-month span. So I'm going to be taking Corey Anderson to win at Bellator gold for the first time in his career, winning the $1 million check, finally getting it again, as he probably should have a couple months ago. So Corey Anderson wins, and that will do it, folks, for our Bellator 288 predictions here on the channel. We'll be back next week for the PFL Championship card. Kayla Harrison, Larissa Pacheco in the main event, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks for UFC Orlando, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and of course Kevin Holland in the main event. And the next Bellator card is Danny Sabatello and Ralphien Stotts for the interim bantamweight championship in the Grand Prix. What a fight that is! But folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Folks, thank you all for watching, and Mamba forever.